Last week, news broke about proposed funding cuts to NPR and PBS, and let's just say our community had some thoughts. And for a good reason. For so many parents, PBS Kids isn't just background noise, it's a lifeline. It's safe, educational programming we can actually trust, which is hard to come by these days. It's Daniel Tiger teaching our kids how to navigate big feelings while we're trying to cook dinner or finish a Zoom call. It's also critical for families who can't access or afford childcare, and for many rural parents who struggle with reliable internet access. These cuts aren't just symbolic, they're a real threat to the kind of support families rely on every day. So I sat down with someone who can help us make sense of it all. Sara DeWitt is Senior Vice President and General Manager of PBS Kids. She's been at the heart of this work for over 2 decades, and she gave us a look behind the scenes at what's really at stake, what parents need to know, and how we can take action. Here's our conversation. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I know you have obviously a lot going on, even regularly, I'm sure, but even more so these days. I'm sure it's been a crazy couple weeks. Would you mind telling me a little bit about just introducing yourself and tell me a little bit about what you do at PBS Kids?
Sure. So my name is Sara DeWitt, and I am the Senior Vice President and General Manager of PBS Kids. And that means that I oversee the PBS Kids service, our delivery of educational, engaging content to kids 2 to 8 across television, streaming video platforms, games, websites, podcasts, short form video, our presence on YouTube, and also all of the content we create for parents and educators, and also the work that we do for our member stations all throughout the country so that they can take this really important PBS Kids content and bring it into the communities who need it the most.
Yeah. And I guess, before we even get into anything, I have a question. What does it feel like? I'm not sure how long you've been doing this, but PBS Kids, I mean, for so many of us, it's like an institution, right? It's like this sacred thing. What does that feel like to take that on and kind of hold that and do it justice?
So I've been at PBS Kids for over 25 years.
Okay.
I started as the second person to work on the PBS Kids website. So I really believe in the mission of this, and the mission that's more than just television. I think I wanted to stress that PBS Kids is about media, about the opportunities that we have with mass media to create experience that can be educational for kids. So looking at what the commercial world does and thinking about how would you use those tools if we really were focused on what's best for kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the freedom of being able to experiment and really do something meaningful without always having to look at the bottom line, but instead at the bottom line being what's good for kids. That's what really drives me. So, and then how does it feel to lead that? There's a lot of responsibility, but it's not just me. There's an amazing group of people and an amazing group of producers, and also that whole station community so committed to this mission. So it's an honor to do this work.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing it. And I mean, it says a lot that you've been there for 25 years. I mean, that really speaks for itself. So my background is in marketing and advertising. And so I'm very familiar with, everything that goes into marketing and trying to sell products or services or things like that. And I hadn't really thought about it much. And it's not like I ever thought I was out there doing the Lord's work, But it felt fairly benign. You are helping companies and services sell certain things that help people. But I didn't really think about it that much until I did have kids. And I have a 4-year-old, he's almost 5, and then a 1-year-old. So it's been interesting with the almost 5-year-old to kind of introduce different media things to him and see honestly different reactions and just kind of how he picks different things up. And we do try to mostly stay on PBS Kids, but there are times where he'll watch some other kids he loves watching these boys playing with monster trucks on YouTube or whatever. And it's not the content is inappropriate, but then he'll come to us and he's I want this car, I want this thing, because they're unboxing things and they're getting toys. And so I think it's all these different ways that every other media space, even if you're on other apps too that are produced professionally for kids, there's a lot of commercial influence. And I think that's what I love, and I'm sure many parents love about PBS Kids, is the funding structure doesn't rely on bias from advertising and monetary influence, right?
Right, exactly. It really, the mission is really just about making sure that there is a group creating content for kids that's free from those constraints and really thinking about what would be best for kids. If you think about like to the legacy, where PBS started was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Sesame Street, two shows that took kind of the promise of television and approached it using the tools of that day, but in completely different ways for kids. One as if it was a conversation with the child at home, and another in stories and short segments that were more like what was happening, in a variety show. And both of those proved to have incredible potential for helping kids really learn. And I think about also the lasting impact of this kind of work. The team that does Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, are you familiar with that show?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
A lot of help with emotional regulation in this household for sure.
Great. Yeah, if you feel so mad that you want to.
Yes.
Yeah, I used that all the time this week a few times.
I know.
That show came out in 2012. And so UCLA Center for Scholars and Storytellers did a survey of teenagers about the impact of that show on their lives and just asking questions like, what do you remember? And it was just astonishing to see how many teenagers, how many 16-year-olds could still sing a song from the show, remembered how safe they felt watching it. And kids who even said, oh, I still use some of those strategies today in my interactions with friends. I mean, all of us probably who grew up on PBS have a story of something they remember that they've carried with them. But to think about the power of that kind of impact, and if it's being done by a group of folks who are really focused on how do you do this well for kids? How do we think about that lasting impact in a way that's really going to help them be more successful in school and in life? That's huge power. And yes, playing with monster trucks is a lot of fun, and it's something that kids can do, but that's a different, that maybe isn't going to have the same kind of impact throughout their lives.
Totally. I think they serve different purposes, right? He loves playing with the monster trucks out in the yard and getting in the dirt and being kind of just playing. They're like I didn't realize they were like his Barbies, basically. He plays with them like dolls, which is also good. He's playing imaginatively with them. Right. But definitely
hands-on.
Like I mentioned, there's actual emotional regulation things that come from things like Daniel Tiger. He loves watching Wildcrats, and the things he tells me, I'm like, what do you mean? How did you know that? And it's usually from Wildcrats. And as a busy parent, I feel like we like to shame parents a lot for screen time, and we're all doing our best out here. I definitely don't like to do that, because there's times, especially if you have multiple kids or you're juggling things, where you have to walk away and do something. And I feel comfortable knowing that I can walk away with Wildcrats on or whatever, and everything's going to be fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to speak to what you were talking about the teenagers who remember those things. I mean, there's so much value in an institution like that that's been built up over time and is based on research and things like that. And I think that probably speaks to why so many people there's crazy news every day, right? My community in particular was I have a very good pulse on what's breaking through the barrier. And this was infuriating people because we all grew up with it too. And I think that's another point that isn't being talked about as much. It's not just about the funding of the current thing. It's about this long line of everything else that has gone into it and just dismissing all of that. And it's been shaping compassionate, empathetic humans for decades.
Yeah, for 50 years. Yeah, it's really important work.
So if the funding cuts were to go through on this, what would that mean for PBS or PBS Kids in general?
Well, honestly, we are starting to live it right now. On Friday night, one of the grants that funds a federal program that funds just PBS Kids programs was terminated. And so we this week have been undoing projects, having to stop production on a few shows. It really cuts off all of our funding that we had for that long-term research on the impacts of this kind of content for kids. We had to furlough staff yesterday. We are really in the thick of it at this moment. And so what does it mean overall? It means that we're focused on how do we keep this service really going for America's children. We have a great pipeline of shows. We have things that are out there now. We have the PBS Kids Games app, which is used by 3.6 million kids a month. And so we're focused right now on how do we realign our resources to make sure we keep all of that stable. But what it really is throwing into question right in this moment is, are we going to be able to keep producing shows like this for kids? And are we going to be able to keep working with the advisors and the researchers who help us make sure that this is really the best thing we're doing, the best thing we can do for kids? How do we make sure that everything we're creating is going to have that positive impact? And that's what I'm really worried about. The other thing is this really has an effect on our member stations. And I mentioned them at the top, but I just feel like it's worth repeating. We have stations throughout the country. And what they do with these federal dollars is identify the communities who don't have great access to preschool, communities who don't have great broadband access. And they partner with community organizations, with Boys and Girls Clubs, with houses of worship, with the Housing Authority, to identify the kids who can most benefit from this content and find ways of getting it to them. Doing workshops with parents so they can see how PBS Kids can help them focus on the key skills that kids will need to get ready for kindergarten. Mm-hmm. Because this really is a service that we know from research can help kids identify letters, can help them with phonemic awareness, can help them with basic numbers and number sense, and also help them get ready for school. What is it like to take turns? How do you work through a conflict with a friend? Skills that we know are going to be so necessary for the workforce of the future. So that's what's at risk here.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point to how intersectional everything is, because especially being in Wisconsin, I heard from a lot of people in rural areas who this is going to impact greatly. And I think, we also have this childcare crisis going on, especially in rural areas too, where people, they either can't afford childcare or they are on a 2-year-long wait list. And I think this is a way we can reach those kids that need help and need to see good examples of kind, compassionate modeling.
Right. And helping kids also see themselves represented in media. I mean, I think about we're working with the research that shows that when kids see kids who look like them or who are in situations that they're in positive ways, that can have a really positive impact on their self-esteem and on their success in school. And so we think about that piece of it too. What made me think about that was rural kids. We have a show that just launched recently that came out of Arkansas PBS called Mystery League that's set in a small town in Arkansas. And we're hearing from people through the country of how exciting it is for kids to see kids like them in these kinds of scenarios. But we also think of this as like a window. How do we introduce kids to other things they haven't seen yet, to the ideas that are going to get them excited? Like, a lot of kids haven't seen flamingos in real life, but if you've watched that Wild Kratts episode, you know that they're pink because they eat shrimp, how do we introduce them to things that gets them excited about learning and really inspires a passion for them to want to explore something in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what can regular people, moms, anybody do to fight back against this? I'm assuming donations, especially to member stations, are good. And is it helpful to call our members of Congress about this? What do you think?
Yes, the best thing to do is to go to protectmypublicmedia.org, and that will help guide you to the best ways that you can contact your representatives and sign petitions and get engaged. You also, if you are not a member of your local station, look them up, send them a note about how much this service means to them. Because right now, those stations are relying on these stories, on this support, so that they can talk to local legislators, state legislators, and also as well as our leaders in Washington, D.C. about the impact of this work and what it means to individual families. So those would be the two things I would suggest. And then also, those of you who are PBS Kids fans, download our apps, tell your friends about them. We have a free PBS Kids video app, a free PBS Kids games app, pbskids.org. You can watch us on your local broadcast station. You also can watch the linear feeds on our streaming apps. Just really engaging with the content and telling people what you love about it.
I love that. Yes. And I can speak from experience. Every other children's app has so many ads, and your kids will accidentally download, it's just a disaster. PBS Kids is the only legitimate app. I swear to God, we've tried them all. It's just the best. So thank you so much for everything you guys are all doing, and I'm sorry it's just been so tough, but there's a lot of people behind you fighting for it. So we'll rally the troops and save this.
Thank you. That means so much to all of us. That means so much to me. Obviously, I'm so passionate about this mission and the good that we can do for children. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.